To all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave parapeeps on this side of the veil, welcome. This is the Paranormal Ministry. I'm your host, Shawn Whittington. I'm a seminarian in the United States Old Catholic Church, and I'm coming to you live from my haunted house, my very haunted house, where I live. We got a great show tonight. I'm very excited to have my guest on. It's her first time here, and I hope she has fun because I'm going to want her back. But you all know her, you all love her. I've been getting all sorts of messages and notes from you guys, what to ask her, and excited that she's here. She's in the green room, so I will bring her right out. But let's check the prayer urn. Paula B. from Washington State. Hi, Paula. Since the pandemic, life has really kicked me in the stomach. Oh, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I suffer greatly from depression now and need prayer. You're going to make me cry. Absolutely. I will offer up a prayer for you. Okay. Um, Paula, this is Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, I come to you today to ask for help. You are my everything. Lord, I need rest. I give you my worry. Take it, Lord. I accept your peace, love, and understanding. Help me to turn to you and not to myself, to stop doing and start trusting. Help me to wait on your answers because I know that they are good. Give me wisdom, hope, and peace. Thank you, Lord, for your patience and grace. I love you, and I know you love me so much more than I could ever imagine. Amen. That is for you. Okay, Paula, please keep me posted on your life, how you're doing from time to time. And if you ever need to talk, you know I'm always here. Let's check the Paranormal Ministry mailbag. Danny S. from Texas. Are there different kinds of ghosts? What about angels, demons, and ETs? It's a perfect question for my guest tonight. I'm going to leave this out and we might talk about that. Um, you know what? I'm going to get hate mail for this. I'm going to say, to me, no. My personal experience and my feeling is that there's disembodied human spirits, and they all tend to act different. I'm not a big fan of the residual haunt theory, and of course, yes, of course, I believe in angels, um, and demons are very real, and so yes, to me, there are not different types of ghosts, Danny. And I do believe in demons. I do believe in angels and ETs, extraterrestrials. I believe that we are not the only intelligent life in the universe or on this planet, other than human beings that were born here. So I think I will leave this out and talk to my guest a little bit about that because that's right up her alley. Brothers and sisters, if there's anything you want to know about my wife and I and our ministry work, go to our website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz. And if you go there, keep in mind that my wife and I don't charge for our ministry work, helping people with their paranormal issues. So I know times are tough, but if you notice the donate button and you're able to do so, click on it and send in a small donation to our ministry. I promise you, it'll be appreciated from the bottom of our hearts. And trust me, we'll put it to good use. Don't leave the website without navigating over to the page called the WSE course/book. On that page, you'll find my new haunted autobiography, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry. And I quote, scariest book I ever published. That was Annette Munich, owner of Stellium Books, my publisher, but don't let that scare you off of purchasing a copy. If you haven't done your good deed for the day yet, part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my book goes to support stjude.org, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Nevada, and the ASPCA. So you get to help some of the most neediest children on the planet and the animals too. How cool is that? You can get the book a little less expensive at Amazon, but if you buy it off of the website, it comes directly from me, autographed and enclosed in a house blessing kit. And this is a great time to purchase the book because God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry 2, Chronicles of an American Exorcist, comes out next month, November. So this is a great time to get all caught up before hopefully you run right out and purchase the second book. Scroll a little further down, you'll see the Worldwide Society of Exorcists, which I am a founding member. I offer a 12-week online college level course, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare, through the WSE. And this is the course for all you true warriors for Christ that feel a calling and a longing to want to have more knowledge when it comes to drawing your line in the sand, making a stand, circling the wagons, and putting up a good fight against, God forbid, true evil if it ever comes calling. That's the course for you. You can enroll in the course at the website. If you'd like more information about the course before making that type of commitment, there is a Worldwide Society of Exorcists Facebook page. You can go there and read about the course or just reach out to me. Talk to me about it. I'm approachable, I'm easy to get a hold of, and we'll talk about the course and if it's right for you. Most importantly, please keep all of my former, current, and future students in your prayers. Okay? All right, guys, the moment of truth, the reason why you all tuned in. Uh, I stalked her for information the past couple of weeks and just so impressed by her resume and her background. And like I said, I'm just excited to have her here. And apparently, lots of you are too. So, without further ado, elite ufologist, author, paranormal authority, and on and on and on. Brothers and sisters, please welcome to the show the one and only Mary Joyce.
Hi there. Good to see you. This is about as close as we can get in person as we can get.
Yes. Mary, you look very pretty tonight, and I want to honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. I don't know, this is your first time on the show. I hope you have fun because I'm going to want you to come back. And I can't believe this is the first time I've had you on the show. I've wanted to reach out to you so many times, and I don't know why I didn't. But thank you so much for being here. And I've had so many people reach out to me this week, excited that you're here tonight. So let's have some fun. What do I want to ask you first? Okay, you ready? I got a question for you. This is a personal one. Did psychics ever scare you?
Oh, somebody must have known I wrote a book by that title. It was called Psychics Don't Scare Me Anymore.
That's right.
That goes way, 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 way back. And um, I'd been in the newspaper business, and when I was an editor for a Michigan newspaper, one of the reporters came back with a story about a psychic, and I was editing the story. So I'm talking to myself, saying, "Okay, Mary, if you're so open-minded, um, you need to check this out for yourself." I was very fortunate because the first psychic I ever went to was actually very good. Of course, didn't know the difference then, but I ended up later traveling the country, not for that purpose, but for another job. And I interviewed psychics or went to psychics in 5 states in Canada, if I remember correctly. And um, I just learned an awful lot that way. But no, they don't scare me anymore. And you can almost tell instantly
Yeah.
if they know what they're talking about or if they're legit. I don't know what it is, but you just know. And the really good psychics aren't going to scare the pants off of you. And I think that's what scares many people about going to a psychic because they're afraid they'll say something um, that'll, you know, be doom and gloom. And so that's where the fear comes in. And when you find out the really good psychics aren't about to dump a load of, you know what, on you, the fear goes away.
Yeah, personally know I can count them on one hand. these psychics that I'm friends with, that I know, like you said, you just know in your heart of hearts that they're legit. They're truly gifted. But and now I'm going to go a little paranormal on you. We went through. If you go back and you research some of the most famous ghost hunters and ghostbusters and paranormal investigators from back in the day, most of the famous ones always worked with a really good psychic. And then all of a sudden, we went through all of these years where it seemed like no paranormal team had a psychic. And if you asked some of them, they would say, "Oh, we don't want to have a psychic on the team. We don't like working with them." That seems to be kind of turning around now. Some of the most successful teams, and I say successful in terms of teams that go out then and they really help these people with these paranormal issues and bring closure to the case and give them their lives and their homes back. Most of these very successful teams do have a psychic, and they wouldn't have it any other way. My wife is very psychically gifted, and I consider her my best paranormal tool. Give me your opinion on why do you think that was? Why, for a while, their paranormal teams didn't seem to want to work with them? And if you have an opinion on whether they should or shouldn't be a part of a team.
Really credible psychics are probably going to help police departments, Ghostbusters. Um, the key is they have to be good. They have to be accurate psychics. Now that doesn't mean that all psychics, can ever reach 100%. I'm not saying that. But there are a lot of people out there who have very little or very limited ability, and if they're the ones that are brought on the team, it's not going to help. It's not going to be an asset. But if you luck into somebody who truly is gifted, um, they can be very helpful.
Absolutely. Well said. I agree totally. Like I said, I couldn't. I do a lot of cases now without my wife. If she finds out, she gets upset, and she's very stubborn and wants to work all of them. But she's like a survivor of an extreme demonic attack, and so most of the cases I work are of a much more malevolent, darker in nature, and so I worry about her.
Right.
And but when I have, it's like night and day. Cases I do work with her, and cases I don't work with her. The outcome is like night and day, and so I'm a big fan of them. But next question. Oh, here comes some. Here, oh, now this is a good one. Bigfoots and psychics together, marrying together in that field. I know. You know what? I know why this friend of mine asked this question, because they were just on your Facebook page, and I see a note here. They saw that you recently posted an article about a woman who discovered a family of Bigfoot on her property, on her ranch, and she is now receiving psychic messages from them. And I know why I wanted to ask you this, because I have a personal story to tell you about that. Do you know the article I'm speaking of?
I'll react several ways. Number one, that's just a portion of a story that I have in a book that I've written called Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints. And the purpose of that book was to present what I'll call the human side of Bigfoot. And they have families. They've actually rescued people who've been in trouble in, rare cases, but it's happened. They have language. Um, and so the whole purpose of the book was to show this human side of the Bigfoot instead of presenting them as monsters and scary things in the woods. So that was the purpose of that, and that's where that partial story comes from. I do not think that that woman claimed any psychic ability. What was happening is, and what happens with many interchanges with Bigfoot, is there's telepathic communication, which is not the same thing as having psychic ability. Anybody can receive telepathic information, and apparently, the Bigfoot that's how they communicate. And I mean, with humans, they do have their own language. People have recorded it, um, but I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I find this. When I first started doing this show, and I'm celebrating my 7-year anniversary with the show next Friday. But when I first started doing this, I totally wasn't into Bigfoot at all. I thought and suspected that I had, in junior high school on a camping trip had an experience with one. Didn't talk to a lot of people about that, but then when I started having more Bigfoot people on my show as guests, the bug hit me, and I ended up becoming this full on Bigfoot fanatic, if you will. I just love stories about the creature. Now, I'm going to tell you, would you consider this telepathic? First of all, I might as well ask you this. I'm a big believer in them. Do you believe that this creature exists?
Yeah, I've seen evidence myself. I absolutely do.
Um, I have a friend. I've known her a long time. I trust her. She's very psychically gifted. She lives in the great Northwest, out up in the mountains. Avid hiker, extreme hiker almost. She goes hiking out there with. She just moves to another new home. She goes hiking with her dogs out there, and she comes home, very uneventful hiking trip. Comes home and goes, "Wow, could I have been gone that long? Normally she's gone a couple of hours, early morning, home mid morning. Now she's arriving home. It's like late in the day." She kicked around, laughed about it with herself. Did I get abducted by aliens and lose time here? But she just kind of let it go. A few days goes by, and a very close friend of hers calls her up, and they start talking. And she doesn't know why, but out of the clear blue, her friend goes, "So have you seen Bigfoot yet?" And when that happened, she was hit with this vision that when she was on that walk, she saw a Bigfoot crouched down by a stream, doesn't know what it was doing, but it looked at her and told her, "You don't see me," telepathically, "You don't see me." And in this vision, her dogs were still like her, didn't react and do anything either. And normally they would be going nuts and crazy and barking. But he just said, "You're tired, go home." And she totally forgot about it. I believe her that that happened. And she's not a Bigfoot fanatic. But you hear about this a lot of. I'm talking about years ago. I was talking to Bigfoot guys about some of this stuff that a lot of the Bigfoot community wasn't talking about. Now they all seem to be talking about it. Do you think this is like a form of that infrasound that they refer to, where Bigfoot can be right in front of people, but they don't see it because they do some type of telepathic or weird infrasound thing to them that just does something to the human mind?
I do not know. I really do not know. I cannot say absolutely. I've heard all the theories on it. Um, I live here in the mountains of Western North Carolina. That's where I first began to run into the Bigfoot stories. I've gotten personally involved in a number of them. Everything that I have personally witnessed and experienced is that they are very physical beings. Um, but I keep hearing about these abilities to like disappear in front of people's faces and stuff like that. Nobody around here has seen that. I haven't seen that. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but it is why I can't give you a straight answer.
I find that very fascinating. You've got some of these guys that have, old dudes that have been, squatching as far back as they can remember, and they will tell you stories about cloaking. Maybe not so much of a disappearing act, but a cloaking, or some of them suspect possible interdimensional travel. Do you believe this is some of my indigenous friends just call it the forest spirit. Some of them even call them, if they've had a bad experience with them, they call them forest demons. But they call them forest spirits. Do you think it's a God created entity of flesh and blood, or do you think it's extraterrestrial, or do you think it's a mixture of both spiritual and our world? What's your gut tell you?
I know you expect some really nice straight answers from me. I'm not sure I can give them to you. I want to give what's coming to mind right now is one of the men who has Bigfoot living on his land. He heard the Bigfoot at night making a whole lot of noise out in the forest near his house. So he got his camera and he went out there because he wanted to capture whatever was going on. What he captured was that the Bigfoot were along the tree line, all looking up at the sky. And when he looked up there, there was a big gold colored UFO. So there may indeed be a connection with the UFOs. Um, I don't know. I just don't
That's
know what to tell you.
very interesting.
Yeah,
That
because
is
I mean,
very
my
interesting.
mind is open. I've not made conclusions about some of these things.
What scares you? Does anything scare you? As much knowledge as you have about a lot of stuff, does anything really scare you? What do you think you would do if you ran into a Bigfoot?
Well, I certainly have thought about that. Now, if one suddenly appeared at my door, my let's say I'm at home at night and there's a sliding door and it appears there, probably would scare the you know what out of me. However, if one was across the field or across the grass or across the yard from where I am, and we slowly approached each other, I could probably deal with that. But the suddenness of it might be kind of hard to take.
Let me throw another personal experience at you, and you can tell me. You can tell me if you think everybody that was talking to me on this day was on drugs. I worked a couple of paranormal cases on a nearby Indian reservation here, and I felt totally blessed to have even been invited by the holy people onto this reservation to help with a case that they were having some issues with. Um, and thank you to God, somehow I was able to, with help, bring closure to this case. And as a reward or thanking me, they invited me to a sweat lodge session. And I tell people right off the bat, yes, I believe I took some some peyote, among other things, to be a part of this session. But I remember one of the last things told to me before I went into this sweat lodge was the holy man said, "You're going to see some things you've never seen before or thought you would never see. Nothing's going to hurt you. The only thing that we didn't invite to this session was the Bigfoot." And it just kind of, right, just blew that off, and you know, but I talked to a lot of indigenous friends that say that there's many, many of them on these reservations because they're federally protected land, and that the Indians are the only ones there, and they're relatively peaceful. Um,
Also, the many of the tribes, maybe all of them, but many of the tribes regard the Bigfoot as another clan of people. So they have a different attitude than we have about them.
I'm going to eventually get you to give me your best opinion on government disclosure, which is a joke. But before I do that, what do you, in your heart of hearts, I'm going to put your feet to the fire and get your as honest an opinion you can give me. Do you think we will ever know? I mean, some of us know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this creature exists, but do you think something will happen and the disclosure will be there and the world will finally know? And I've got a lot writing on this. I have a veterinary friend who believes it's a joke. And if I win the bet and they finally do discover him and prove it to the world, I get a lifetime supply of tacos. So,
What an enticement.
yeah, I love tacos. So, what do you think? Do you think, and then there's a lot on this list, disclosure list I'm going to throw at you, but what do you think? Do you think that's ever going to happen? Or if the government is involved, and I believe both of us think they are also in the cover up, it's not going to happen.
People keep thinking that something on high, like the government, is going to disclose information about Bigfoot, about UFOs, about whatever. Uh, I don't think that's the way it's ever going to happen. I think disclosure is happening with programs like yours, with websites like mine, with books like mine. Um, that's how the disclosure, there's a whole network of, internet podcasts and radio shows. That's how the disclosure is happening. The government will only reveal as much as it's forced to reveal. When they get cornered, then all of a sudden, like with UFOs, they'll start showing these little radar pictures of tic tac UFOs, which is nothing in comparison to what they know. And the most recent book that I've done, the short title is Spy in the Sky. And what I've done is I'm tying this together. I've used Google Earth, and I have scanned unbelievable amount of time Mars I'll just stop at Mars. And I have found evidence that we're already there. And there are, for example, I found 27 warehouse type entrances into Mars, all in a line, spread out over 16 miles. Um, in the book, I show pictures of it. But just in the pages before I get to those photos, I put in a statement by the man who was the head of Israeli space security for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Um, he was well respected, and for some reason, he decided to go public with some of his information. And in December of 2020, he, let's say, confessed to what was going on in the Jerusalem Post, which is a respected newspaper. Let me grab something because I just want to read some real
Sure.
short statement from him. Okay, the whole statement is in my book, but I just want to read two parts. Um, there is an agreement between the US government and the aliens. They signed a contract with us to do experiments here. They too are researching and trying to understand the whole fabric of the universe, and they want us as helpers. That's one statement. The other one shorter. There's an underground base in the depths of Mars where the alien representatives are, and also our American astronauts. I also, when I was doing the scanning of the planet, I also found what I call habitats, which are self-contained living structures. And I found one in the northern hemisphere, which was 700 feet in length. And there's a tool with Google Earth where you can actually measure these things. I think it was about 5 years later, I discovered another one in the southern hemisphere, and it must have been built later because it was actually 10 times larger. It was 7,000 feet in length. So these are contemporary structures that make it possible to live in an alien environment. And so that's some of the evidence that I've included in the book, um, that show that yes, we're there. And you better believe the government's trying to hide that. And that's one of the reasons I did the book.
Do you does the government now just pretty much write people like you and I off as, well, they just assume the world will think we're kooks other than people that are like us, and they just write it off? Because back in the day, there was a time where you and I couldn't be having this conversation, especially on a podcast, for fear that we would disappear. Where do you think that's at? Do you ever fear for your safety? Because you have a lot of knowledge. You've got quite the background in fact finding and research and investigating a variety of topics. Do you ever fear for your safety?
I don't wear a collar, but I still believe there's a God, and I believe that He's protecting me.
It's funny you bring up God. Um, I'm having the most wonderful love affair with God right now. Um, I talked to an abductee in Canada once who told me that when the first time he was abducted, and since that time, the same group of aliens have visited him many times. They don't ever hurt him. But the first time they did, they asked him, "Have you seen God? Have you seen God yet?"
Hmm.
I thought that was really interesting, and that kind of ties into what you had mentioned with the alien agenda, um, with wanting just to work with us on a variety of things. They must be so much further advanced than us. What could we possibly offer them, and why don't they just take us over?
Well, first of all, you can't think that the word they covers them all. They have the good, the bad, and the ugly, just like we humans do. So you can't put them all in one box. So I think that's an important statement. There's some that I think are benevolent. I think there's some that are not. And then there's the neutral ones in the middle. And some of them I think are just here to protect this planet, and they don't care about the humans. Some I think are are benevolent, um, but we can't categorize them into one box.
Very interesting. Uh, do you fear any of them?
I don't want to have anything to do with some of them. I don't want anything. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
I
want
know.
anything
It's a
to get.
weird thing.
If a reptilian showed up, I do not want to see those kind. I don't. I do not. As far as I'm concerned, they don't have a good reputation, and I don't see them acting any better than some of the demons you must deal with.
And that's funny you bring that up too, because I suspect there have been cases where I've gone on, and whatever's happening there, I'm going to throw out the term mimic. Seems to be mimicking classic demonic infestation or oppression or possibly even possession. But then when I start peeling the layers away and getting more into the investigation, nothing seems to react like it should react to. Like there's some rules, and it doesn't seem like anything that I'm doing is helping, and sometimes even making things worse. Now I know that there are some non. It's believed in my field that there are some non-human entities that are never inhabited a human body, and they don't have any fear of God, the God that we believe in. So it's just real provocation when someone like me shows up and tries to give them a hard time. Having said that, do you think that some of these people that come to me that are saying I'm being visited at night, some of the people that reach out to me, the visitations are very sexual. Some of the visitations are just wondrous, taking them off to, show them other dimensions and other worlds. Some of the visitations are extremely violent. Do you think that also a big believer in guardian angels? I believe I've seen mine on more than one occasion. Do you believe that some of these encounters by people and they believe that they're either ghosts or demons are actually visitations from extraterrestrials?
Yes, that could absolutely be the case.
That's scary.
That's not the normally when people have encounters with ETs, whether they're good or bad, they don't come through as a ghost form. Some of the good ones who have been that look human, that look, like the Nordics or whatever, um, some of them have appeared like at the foot of somebody's bed when they're really in sick and need healing, and the person or people have been healed. Those just suddenly appear. There's no ghost like quality to them, and then they just disappear. They come in to, let's say, heal the person, and then they're gone. Um, but there's no ghost quality. It's just there and gone, and very solid while they're there. Um, I don't know where else I was going to go with that. I had another thought
Well, I
somewhere.
well I remember that the short stint that I did in the Navy. I was on a guided missile cruiser, and sometimes we would go out for months at a time and out. I don't know where we were, and I had top secret clearance in the Radio Shack. I was a radio man, so I would see a lot of stuff come over the teletype, and then certain messages you would flag. Hopefully, they don't sneak past you, but you would be looking for certain messages from other ships out there to whatever. And if you flagged one of these, you had to walk up to the bridge and give it to the XO to get it to the captain or whoever was on charge on the bridge at that time. And if it was in the middle of the night, that was tough because you're not allowed to turn any lights on the ship at night. So you got to memorize where you're going because just a slight bump of the noggin on a bulkhead splits your head open because it's all steel. So you got to be very careful. But I would see some messages come across that sometimes didn't even get out of the Radio Shack if I showed any of the officers that were in the Radio Shack with me, okay, I've flagged this. I'm going to take this up to the bridge, and they would look at it and they would discard it and say you never saw that message. And sometimes I would talk to signalmen or guys that worked up on the bridge, and there would be some things that we sometimes would see out at like USOs, unidentified submerged objects, where you'd see other things happening out there. And back then, at least, now I'm 60, I was in my late teens, early 20s, so a long time ago. Back then, you didn't talk about that sort of stuff. Seems to be a little more loose-lipped now, especially with um, the Navy pilots, let's say, for example, that have shown come out with footage and shown that and film clips of their reactions to seeing these UAPs now. What's your take on all of that? And are they just going to keep stroking us and never really tell us what's going on?
I think it's a baby step when they started recently this year showing us the radar footage of Tic Tac UFOs. That's a step forward. So they are acknowledging it now. And um, they still aren't beginning to show us or share with us half the stuff, even a smidgen of what they actually know. And like I said, it's from the ground up. It's from the grassroots up. It's from the internet podcast up that disclosure will come, and that's the only way it's going to happen.
What are you most? Oh my gosh, you have such a fantastic resume. I was stalking you the past week or so, and then I just got like, there's just so much to you. I'm like, I only have an hour show. I'll have her back. I'll beg her back if I have to. But what are you most passionate about? What really, I mean, of all the different types of things under this big paranormal community umbrella that you and I sit under, what are you most passionate about?
I've done a book on little people, Bigfoot, secret underground bases. I've done one on Jesus. Um, and the most recent one is The Spy in the Sky, which I am the most interested in right now because the other things are really like what's happening now or historic. This is like peering into our future. It's the future that's being kept from us. It's the future that we have a right to know about. And I think that's really important. And that's why I did the book. And the book has photos, color photos almost totally, on every page except for three. I self printed this because I didn't want anybody else messing with it. And it was expensive to produce. If you can imagine,
Oh yeah.
full color book is expensive.
Oh my
I am
gosh.
not
Yes.
making a cent off personally off of this book, but I feel that strongly that the message needs to get out.
God bless you for that too. It may take some time because if I could pan the camera around, my office looks like the opening scene from the original Ghostbusters movie in the library, where it's just stacks and stacks and stacks of books. Because people send me books, and then they want to come on the show and they want me to try and read the book. And I said, listen, God bless you for sending me the book. I'll try my best. Probably not going to get read before you get on the show, but I'll plug it. But having said that, before we run out of time, let me make sure everybody knows how to follow you and reach you. You have a wonderful website. I've been there. www.skyshipsovercashiers, all one word.com. You also have a Facebook page of the same name, and you have a YouTube channel of the same name. Some cool pieces of film footage on that YouTube site. Loved it. And your books. It's, I almost thought, am I related to her? Because you wrote a book on all the kinds of stuff that I like. I You have the book Tangible Evidence of Jesus Left Behind for Us to Find, Spy in the Sky. You've got the book that really jumped out at me was Psychics Don't Scare Me Anymore.
Oh, that's not even in print anymore.
Oh no.
I did that back in the 70s or 80s, a long time
No
ago. It's
copies laying around the house?
yeah, yeah, I've got a few left, but
Tell
that's
me
been
what
out of
you
print for a
send me
long
a
time.
message and tell me what to send you for one. I'd like to see that book. Um Understand military underground military bases, Cherokee Little People. I would love to read that. We're real. I'm a big believer. I don't know if you would consider them an elemental. I'm a big
No,
believer.
I know what elementals are. These are flesh and blood little people.
Okay, I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it because I believe everybody. What do I, at this point? What do I care? I know a lot of people think I'm a whack job, and I might be. I believe I have elementals and in a form of little people on my property here. My wife, many years ago, before we met, brought home. Lived in Hawaii for many many years. Brought home this. I didn't know she had it. This rock, the most unusual looking rock I've ever seen in my life, she brought, and I didn't know that she just sat it in her flower planter out front. And we went through a period of time where I was experiencing some weird, weird things. And one day I'm out there gardening and I see this rock, and I know it's not in a rock that belongs in southern Nevada.
Right.
I asked her about this rock. She goes, "Oh, that's my Hawaii rock." And I just went, "Oh," because I know you don't bring anything back from the islands. So what I did, I reached out into the paranormal community, and of course, me being me, I did do a lot of prayers and blessings and prayed to the Holy Family for help and in closure with this. But I did a lot. I do have some indigenous blood flowing through my veins, so I brought some of that to the table and did. What I did was I tried to appease this rock, and I put it in the most beautiful area of my garden, and I blessed it, and I've given it offerings. And I know I've probably lost half my audience already, but I've given it special offerings and holy water and blessed salts and prayers, and things got a lot better. And I just tell everybody that comes around here, especially kids out there playing or the wife, don't touch the rock. Whatever I did seemed to work, so let's just leave it where it's at. But I saw I even reached out to my friend in Hawaii and I said, describe a mini hoonie to me. Because I thought I saw a mini hoonie looking at me through the doggy door at me one night when I'm watching TV in the living room. I'm like, is that a cat? No. Is that another dog or something or a wild animal that got in my yard? Doesn't look like any other wild animal I've ever seen. But it was dark enough to where it almost had a glow to it, and then it just brought its head back in through the doggy door and walked across my porch and was gone. But I could see it walk across.
How big was it?
It's a little tiny person,
Yeah, well, you're talking. We're talking two different things. And the Mahoney man, I don't remember how to say it.
mini honey.
Minihuni. They're like the Cherokee Little People, and the Cherokee Little People are about 3.5 feet tall, and they're flesh and blood. And I've actually met somebody who is an offspring of both a Hawaiian parent and a Cherokee parent, and had so many of the characteristics of the Little People.
Wow.
But that's part of both cultures. But I know what elementals are. I know about fairies and gnomes and all of that. That's a totally different category.
Oh my gosh. Do you get into any of that weird stuff like me, like going out and blessing your property and doing the saging and the all any of that kind of stuff to have peace and harmony with your land? Do you do any of that?
Um, Only in just positive thoughts, you know. No, I don't go to ritualistic anything in accomplishing that. No, but I do believe in God, or as the Indians call it, the Creator, which I think is a great name.
I do
And
too.
um, I actually prefer it sometimes to the word God, because God has come, is a loaded term for so many people, and so you can avoid some of the um, whatever people hook onto the idea of God. The Baptists have one idea, and the Catholics have another, and the Protestants have another, and there's so many other variations. And I don't know. The term creator seems to be
I like
better
that
at
term.
avoiding that kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I love that term also. I've asked many of my indigenous friends, do we pray to the same God? And they go, probably, but we call him the creator or the great
Hmm.
father. Um, what else do I want to ask you real quick? I want to ask you about ufologists. I know some diehard ufologists that now I know a lot of Bigfoot people that go out and like you said, the one person saw the Bigfoot looking up at the UFO. Some of these people go out, Bigfoot people, and now they've experienced so much different type of weird paranormal activity. Um, orbs in the forest, phantom figures that look like ghosts, shadow figures, the Bigfoot themselves, and all different types of. They've become like paranormal investigators when they used to just be Bigfoot guys. But I talk to a lot of ufologists that are so into going on night watches and aliens and extraterrestrials and wishing they could go be a space traveler and stuff. I always wonder, why are so many people, in your humble opinion, so into, some of those can be so into that topic when they're not interested in undersea travel. And I believe there's a lot going on under our oceans that we couldn't even imagine, or even traveling the world and meeting other people. Like, I know we're all of the human race, but there's so many different people around the world, different cultures, different types of people. That doesn't seem to interest. I wonder why the interest in that isn't as fevered as the interest in ufology. Do you have a theory?
I think there's some people who just get obsessed with one particular thing and they can't let go of it. Um, I I am not that way. Obviously, the books you just rattled off gives you some indication of how my mind can go in different directions, um, and I think that's healthy. So people who are into Bigfoot need to, perhaps, if people get obsessed about just one thing, then maybe they need to work hard at being more balanced.
Well said. Before we run out of time here, let me make sure I got the important questions out of the way so I don't get any hate mail later. Let's talk about, um, do you have, somebody asked, do you have anything you would like to rant about? Let me tell you something.
Yes, I
You,
do.
you,
I do. I
you
will.
can
I will
rant
cut you
about
off. I
anything
will
you want
rant.
to rant about. I
My
always,
rant. My rant is these people who like to use Photoshop and create all sorts of very convincing false images. They do it with UFOs. They do it with Bigfoot. They do it with whatever. They they make what we do more difficult. And when I've gotten stung just a couple times, but I have to go back and, like, if I find something that's on Mars, I found one that was so convincing. It looked like there was ancient hieroglyphs of some kind on this stone. I almost fell for it, but I kept searching for the original NASA photo and finally found it. It did not have those on it. Somebody had very skillfully created this, and the effort that goes into trying to um, avoid being tricked by these people is tedious, and they're not. I wish they would use their intelligence and their creativity in a more positive, productive way. And so those people are not my favorite people at all.
I agree. And it just goes in any field that you happen to be into under this paranormal community umbrella that we're under. Falsifying evidence is, should be the big no-no. And if you ever get caught doing that, it should be, I don't know, should bring back an old principal, who's like, 80 years old, and back in the day when they were allowed to paddle bad students, and we should give these people a public paddling, give them a double P, bring back public paddling.
Right.
I'm gonna,
But again, with part of my rant, in order to pull this kind of stuff off, they have to be somewhat intelligent. They have to be somewhat creative. Please use that for something worthwhile.
I got to the point. Yeah, it was. First of all, I've gone on investigations where I would have like a diehard parapsychologist with me, and God bless them. I don't have anything. No, don't judge anybody. But I would take a diehard skeptic parapsychologist to a location that I know is infested with spirit, and they may even see a full body apparition. And as soon as the apparition is gone, they're already looking at me and debunking what they just saw. So it doesn't matter. People are going to believe what they're going to believe. I stopped even showing evidence, putting evidence that I have captured out there, unless I've had a real strong personal experience with it that coincides with that photo or piece of film footage that I took at that moment. If I can tie a personal experience in with it, I may share it. Otherwise than that, I don't share anymore because it just it just got people really coming after you. You know, there's people that it doesn't matter what you show them, they're either going to believe or they're not going to believe. The only people that really like you and I that believe are people that are experiencers, diehard experiencers, or have at the very least interviewed. That goes a long way with me too. If I interview somebody that is credible, they're a mature, or children too. I don't want to exclude them, but they have no reason to lie to me or deceive me, and they're legit. Um, I find even if I haven't experienced it, if interviewing somebody who's legit and they're telling me of their experience, I can gauge pretty well if someone's trying to pull the wool over my eyes. So that goes a long way with me too. But yeah, some people you just can't. They're going to believe what they're going to believe. Um, I wish the indigenous would be a little more open with their experiences. They're so even friends of mine are very tight-lipped with sharing with me things that happen out on the res, and
Well,
I
you know,
get
the book I wrote about the little people, it's called Little People Were Real, which is past tense. After I came out with that book, um, then the native people found out I wasn't going to laugh at them. And so I began to hear testimonies that the little people still exist. So if I had had that kind of contact with people before I wrote the book, I would have changed the title just a little bit because I am now convinced there are still some around. And if they can stay out of sight most of the time, it's pretty easy to believe since we hardly ever get to see Bigfoot.
yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. What are you gonna do for do you like Halloween? Are you gonna do anything special for
Well,
Halloween?
no, when I was a kid, I sure did love it. Listen, I live in the mountains right now, so trick or treating at the door and stuff just doesn't happen, and because we're spread out. But I did live in a conventional suburban neighborhood when I was in the peak of my Halloween days, and Halloween was just so much fun.
The wife and I love Halloween. I actually will have a Monday night show, Halloween night, because it is on a Monday this year. And but there was a time where we would go all out and decorate the front of the house, and she would buy a ton of candy. I would make sure she bought far more than I knew we would need because I know that then I would have a bunch of candy for a while
Fat and
after her.
tacos, huh?
Yeah, and she's had me on Nutrisystem for since October of last year, so that's going well. But I am going a little crazy. I get to cheat occasionally, but I have no willpower over tacos or candy. But we used to do that. But then my house, we've been in this neighborhood for over 20 years, and everybody knows her and I are the crazy old ghost people, and that our house is haunted.
And
Lots of
so they
crazy.
love to come to your place on
Well, no, they
Halloween.
get scared.
Oh,
There's been enough weird stuff that has happened here that the kids stopped wanting to come to the door. We would get the knock on the door. I'd open it, and it would be the parent. The kid, I would look down the driveway. There's the kid.
kid wouldn't come up, huh?
No, he would send the parent up to get the candy. So the wife and I decided one year that we should probably just um, turn
Forget
the
it.
don't put the pumpkin out and turn the front porch light off and just not do them anymore. So we don't do Halloween in that sense anymore. But it's a tradition for me. I know she'll bring home a pumpkin for me to carve, and I'll put the candle in it and carve it out and stick it on top of the TV, and we'll find a good scary movie to watch before she goes to bed that night. But that's about it uh, for my Halloween stuff. But you say the mountains. How much up in the mountains are you?
I can look out my window and see the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm in the mountains.
Are you near the Appalachian Trail?
Yes, I can get to it.
My wife's mother or somebody wrote a book about her grandmother called, I think it's called Grandma Gatewood. If she's watching, and she probably is, she's going to be mad that I don't remember the title of the book. But her grandmother was the first woman to at her age, and she was really, really up there in years when she hiked the Appalachian Trail, and somebody
Hmm.
wrote a book about her. So, and I've talked to a lot of people from that many different areas of that Appalachian area who now the whole different creature, if you will, that they're seeing and experience are feral people. Have you heard much about feral people or know much about that or interviewed
I've
anybody
read
that?
stories about them. I don't know of any local ones. I have never talked to somebody about it. I've just read maybe maybe two or three books about people who have survived that kind of childhood, um, and so they write about it in hindsight. That's about all I really know.
I'm going to ask you a crazy question that doesn't have anything to do with anything, real quick. My last question, then I have to say goodnight to you. Do you think it's possible that Bigfoot and humans can mate if they were to come across any of these feral people out there? Or sometimes you hear of people disappearing at these national parks, and I've talked to some of these forest rangers that say, we would track the person and we would realize what took them wasn't a bear or a wolf or a bobcat, not a bobcat, but a cougar. Something else took them. Do you think that's possible?
First of all, I do not think the Bigfoot are responsible for the people disappearing in the national parks. That very well could be alien. It very well could be um, certain aspects of our government in cooperation with ETs. I do not believe that the Bigfoot are responsible for that. As far as interacting, I did do a story that's on the website. I can't even tell you exactly where it is, where um, a woman was captured by a Bigfoot, and she did become pregnant, but the baby didn't live when it was born.
Oh,
So I don't know if I don't know if that can become a viable baby or not. I really do not know, but I do
hmm,
regard the Bigfoot as our distant cousins.
very interesting. Mary, this is the most important question I'm asking you tonight. Did you have fun? Will you come back?
Well, I had to be on guard. Heaven knows what you're going to come up with. How's that for an answer?
I didn't know what I was going to come up with either. Some people sent me some questions, and I was just happy to talk to you. And I just thought wherever it goes, it goes. That's how I roll. But I loved having you here tonight, and I love you and respect you, and I just hope you'll come back the next time I reach out to you and ask you to. And thank you so much for spending an hour out of your busy Monday evening with me and the Paranormal Ministry family. And you're on the prayer list. God bless you, and I will talk to you soon.
Ditto. Take care.
Take care, Mary. A couple of things she said to me scared me. I don't want to go. I don't want to go hiking anymore. I'm not a big hiker anyway. But alrighty, guys. Next Monday I will be here. It's my 7-year anniversary show. They're gonna go. Ooh, who's he gonna have on? Friday, October 14th. Dr. Joy Pugh. You know to be ready for that one. Okay. I want to thank my co-producers Zach and Adrian Clayton. I want to thank Things Network. I want to thank Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment, Skeleton Key Network, Pact, Little P, capital ACT, Podcasting for All Coming Together channel for all simulcasting my show. If you need a little more God in your life, the United States Old Catholic Church has night prayer every night, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific. It's about 15 minutes long, but it's great. You'll feel good if you want to attend that. I always have the link on my page, my personal Facebook page, or you can go to the USOCC website. Um, Also, Bishop James Long from the USOCC has Bible study Wednesday and Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. Pacific. And you can also go to the website again, USOCC website, or you can go to my personal Facebook page and see the link. That's a good time too. That's a couple hours long, but that's a really good time. I want to thank you all for being here tonight because I don't have a show without all of you guys. So I love you all. You're all on the prayer list. And it is bad joke time. Time for me to pull a joke out of the hat that one of you sent in to try and put a smile on your face before I say good night. What do you call a factory that sells generally decent goods? A satisfactory. Good night, Danny. Good night, Jack. Good night, Dog. Good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. God bless each and every one of you. I love you all. Peace.